welcome to Visordown. My name is Toad and today I'm coming to you from Moto 73 up in Adlington, where I am on the UK launch of QJ Motor coming into the UK market. So this bike is one of the three that I've been riding on this launch. I've also been riding an adventure bike and a V4 cruiser, but I've also been getting some seat time with the SRK 900, which is their naked offering. As ever, I'm going to tell you everything about it and then we'll cut to a bit of a verdict later on and I'll tell you how I found it out here on the roads up in Lancashire. So what is it? Well, the engine of it is a 904cc double overhead cam 8-valve motor, parallel twin cylinder, pushing out about 95 horsepower or around about 93 bhp. You've got 90 Newton meters of torque from that motor and it's got quite an accommodating seat. The seat on it is 810 millimeters, which by anybody's stretch or even my legs is quite a low seat indeed. What I like about the models and the first ones that QJ are bringing in is they're not really scrimping on the componentry and the specification of the bike. So this one's got full Marzocchi suspension, front and rear, adjustable at both ends, and then topped off we've got with Brembo calipers at the front, which have got a proper Brembo master cylinder as well. So on that front, it's fully loaded with kit, brands that you know and brands that you trust, and that is a really big hurdle for people to get over, especially for a burgeoning brand such as QJ Motor. We've got a 17.8 litre fuel tank. It comes in at £6,699, and when you look at it on paper and you put it up against the competition, that isn't a lot of money for a bike that's got nearly 100 horsepower with a thumping great parallel twin cylinder engine. So we have got a 6-speed slip assist gearbox, which has got an up and down quick shifter fitted to it as standard. You've got a colour TFT, which is also Bluetooth compatible. You've got cruise control on this one, full LED lighting, and it tips the scales at 221 kilograms ready to ride. Really all that pales into insignificance because when you look at the price, that £6,699 price tag is probably what's going to draw a lot of people into this new QJ Motor. So like I said, we've got 3 bikes to test on this launch. We've got 2 riding days up here in Lancashire. The weather's looking good today, not so good tomorrow. So we're going to try and get most of the riding, most of the photography and the video done today while it's dry. I will check back with you in a little while and I'll let you know exactly how we've got on. So there we have it, our riding day is done and it has been a busy old affair, been hopping from one bike onto the other. But I think I've done enough miles on each of the 3 that I was focusing on to get a good idea of how they handle. And as we expected, it's been a tale of 2 halves. Yesterday, it was sunny and quite warm. Today, it's been a lot cooler. There's been a little bit of rain and a little bit of mist up in the hills. So we've got to grips with the bikes in a lot of different conditions. This review is solely focusing on the SRK 900 though. And I've got to say, for a big bore 900 parallel twin, the motor isn't very lazy at all. It's very, very gutsy low down and you've got nice punch through the mid-range to enjoy. The fueling at low speed can be a little bit lumpy, but it clears once you get up to speed, so that's all good. It's just around town it can feel a little bit clumsy. You can change the riding mode and go down into the rain riding mode, which softens off the throttle map a little bit on that one, which will improve things a little bit. And the engine note is nice as well. It's not overbearingly loud, but you get enough feedback from the exhaust, so you get a little bit of induction noise as well, just to keep you entertained and to let you know what is going on underneath you. We even covered some motorway miles on the SRK, and happily enough, it will manage 6th gear overtakes at motorway speeds if you need to go and get around a big wagon or something. It will manage those without dropping down a cog, and you've still got enough punch to get up and around whatever it is that's in front of you. So that is all good. It's still got a few of those little niggles that all of the Chinese bikes that I've ridden so far, pretty much every single one of them, they've all got a similar problem in that the gearbox just doesn't feel direct enough for my liking. It feels a little bit slushy. This engine that is in this bike is shared in the SRT 900, the Adventure Tourer that we've also been riding up here. And it's got that same thing occasionally when you'll come up from first into second gear and you're using the quick shifter and you're accelerating hard. It does have a tendency to drop out second gear and drop back into a false neutral, which is a little bit annoying. So what I tended to do was just clutch up from first to second and then use the quick shifter for the rest of the gearbox. And if you do that, you'll be rewarded because the quick shifter actually is okay. It feels like maybe there could be a little bit more finesse with the cut time that it puts on the engine, but overall it works fairly well. It's just not the smoothest or most finesse quick shifter you are going to come across. Sticking with the gearbox, you have got a slip assist clutch, which I've got to say works very well. You have to really, really abuse that, and I mean drop down from sort of motorway speeds into second gear and dump the clutch to get the thing to be overpowered. But overall that works well, and it was quite nice to have that as a little bit of a helping hand on the wet and greasy roads that we're riding today especially. I'm going to move on to the electronics. So the TFT system on it is not the brightest. When you turn the bike on, it comes on, but it's very dim, and then when you turn the engine on, it gets a little bit brighter as the system's got more power. And I do find that the layout of this TFT is quite fussy. There's a lot of stuff going on that really I think could probably go away. A lot of weird graphics and stuff like that, and I'd much rather just have a TFT with like a rev counter, a speedo, gear indicator, temperature and fuel gauge, and anything else just dotted around the outside. This one seems to be a little bit more stylised, and what that does mean is it can be a little bit more difficult to pick out the information that you need as you're riding along on the road. This is another one of those Chinese bikes where, well, Chinese bikes, Japanese manufacturers have started doing it now, where they don't put the indicator repeater as a light on the dash, they put it within the TFT as a little graphic. For me, that's just a big pain in the arse, because especially if the TFT is a little bit dark. On this one I had the brightness turned up full, and it could have still gone brighter in my opinion. You just can't see those indicator repeater lights to know that you've left the indicator on or off. You do have riding modes to play with on this one, so you've got a rain, road and a sport mode. Like the SRK 900 adventure bike that I've been riding up here as well, I spent almost all of my time in just the standard road mode. The sport mode was a little bit too aggressive for me. The throttle connection was much too direct and much too abrupt, and it just made the whole riding experience feel a little bit clumsy and not very smooth. The traction control system, it works, it definitely works, but it can be very eager. So bumpy roads, it will get triggered and it will sort of cut the power very abruptly, and then it will give you all the power again, but in a big fat dolloping thump, which again just doesn't make you feel like you're riding something that's got really truly finessed electronics. And that's one of the things where I think a lot of the Chinese brands could really work on to try and elevate their game a little bit, is just to finesse the electronics so that they're much more user-friendly and they're much more intuitive. You want the electronics to be doing their thing, but you don't want them to feel that they're doing the thing. And on all of the bikes that I've ridden this weekend, including the SRK 900, you definitely feel when the traction control is cutting in very abruptly, and then it will disengage and you'll get all that power back again in a big fat dollop, which isn't very good. Going to move on to the handling of the bike, because obviously it's kind of a sporty naked bike, so the handling is really the keynote speech of it alongside the engine. It's okay, it's actually quite good. It's quite entertaining to ride it quickly on a road, but at 230 kilograms nearly, I think 228 kilograms, there is no hiding the weight of the thing, and it is quite top heavy. It feels like the weight is higher up in the bike than some of the Japanese rivals, for instance. But it feels solid and it feels very planted. You've got the Marzocchi suspension, you've also got decent spec, probably not the best you can buy, but they're okay, Maxxis ST tyres on the thing. And that whole setup, the suspension, the tyres, the weight of the bike and the geometry of it, it's not the pointiest, quickest turning bike that you're ever going to ride. It feels planted. Even on the roads that we were riding today, when it was very, very wet and we were riding on a newly resurfaced road over the top of the dales up here, it did feel planted, and you could push on and you never felt like you were riding right on the edge of grip, which was quite good. So you get a nice bit of feedback through the bars, and the bike sort of lets you know what's going on beneath it as you're riding along the road, which is all good. I've got to talk about the brakes very quickly, because we've got Brembo master cylinders, we've got Brembo discs, and we've got Brembo monoblock calipers. So the braking system, they've gone for the best stuff that they can afford to buy at the price point that they're looking to sell the bike at. And I think that's a really smart move by QJ, because the braking system on it is actually pretty good. The lever feels good, there's plenty of power on there, and the backplate on it is actually surprisingly strong as well, which is all good. The ABS system is a Bosch 2-channel system, so you've got no fancy IMU controlled cornering ABS or anything like that, and it actually works quite well. Unlike the traction control system, it's much harder to trigger the ABS, which I was quite happy about. Overall though, it turns nicely, it gets down the road nicely, it's got decent stability if you're hanging about and riding on the motorway. Look, this is not a super sports bike. It was never going to be a super sports bike, and to be honest with you, it doesn't need to be a super sports bike. What it needs to do is put QJ in people's view in the naked bike segment, alongside bikes like the Hornet 750 and the MT-09 and all the other little middleweight nakeds that are out there, and sort of offer something that's slightly different from the norm at a very different price point, which is what QJ are really focusing on. And on that front, I think they've actually done a pretty good job with it. I'm going to talk very quickly about the comfort. This is you very much sit in this one, not on it. Some super nakeds, you're sort of perched on top and the bars are low. This thing, the seat is low, the tank is high, and the bars are kind of sort of feel like they're up here. They're nice wide bars, but you've got quite a commanding riding position. You can get a lot of leverage on those bars when you're cornering, if you're going down a really twisty B road, so you can work it. You can get into all the sort of positions that you need to when riding fast. The pegs are quite high. It feels sporty at the bottom end and really relaxed up top in terms of the ergonomics of it. It's like being cut in the middle. This could be a sports bike, and this is definitely a very relaxed, naked, sporty tourer. But overall, it's pretty good. I think taller riders may feel a little bit cramped at the bottom end, but on the vibration front, the rest of the comfort, there isn't really much to speak of. You get some around about the 3,000 RPM mark. That kind of clears at motorway speed. So when you're cruising at 75 or 80 miles an hour, there isn't really too much to worry about. And it's not revving super high like some of the Chinese bikes I've ridden. Some of them you get into sixth gear and you're up at like 5,500 RPM, which isn't great. You want to be a little bit lower than that. So on that front, it's actually all right. So overall, the SRK 900, I think QJ have done a pretty good job. You could take this out on a ride alongside your mates who've got, I don't know, KTM 790 Duke, maybe a Honda Hornet 750 or an MT-09 or an MT-07. And you wouldn't be totally embarrassed. You wouldn't get left behind. You'd be able to keep up. It would do everything that they do. Would it do all the things that those other bikes do with as much finesse and as much assistance from the electronics? Probably not, but there are some other niggles as well. Some of the plastic finishes do look a little bit cheap. You've got a bit of a slushy gearbox to contend with, and you've got over-eager traction control that is going to cut in right when you don't need it to. But if you gather up all of those bad bits and then glance across at how much the bike costs, for actual owners of this bike, most of those worries will probably disappear. They probably won't be bothered with them, or they'll adjust the gear lever position, or they'll just learn to work around those gripes and those issues. I mean, the way that I'm going to frame this is by saying you don't go to Iceland, you don't buy a microwave meal and then expect a 4-star Michelin dining experience, do you? And that's kind of what the QJ is. It is a very cost-effective way of getting into the sub-1000cc naked bike class. So if you want to get in on that, then there are some little niggles that you might have to just learn to live with, learn to love, or learn to fix. Anyway, folks, I've been Toad. I've waffled on for far too long. If you like that video, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe so you can stay up to date with all of Visordown's latest videos. And for the latest news, reviews, and motorcycle features, get yourself over to visordown.com.